Okay, tracking macros and calories, and I'm going to talk a little bit about nutrient partitioning here as well. So this is getting into the more complicated, more advanced stuff now. You need to be comfortable with maths to get this right. It also helps if you've got experience tracking calories, like using an app like MyFitnessPal. If you've never used that before, this is probably a bit too advanced for you at this stage. There is, again, supportive literature with this within the group, and you will need to read it if you want to get this right. And of course, you can always ask questions and I'll help you work this out. So the easiest way to do this is, first of all, you've got to work out your TDEE. Remember the first video, I talked about that, total daily energy expenditure. So the way to do that is you track a week or two of food intake. You try to eat to maintenance. So you're not trying to be in a surplus, you're not trying to be in a deficit, you're trying to eat to maintenance. So you need to take some body composition measurements during this time, weight, waist circumference, body fat percentage maybe, and if those are unchanged, you're probably eating to around maintenance. And then all you do is you total up a week, so a total amount of calories that you've consumed over the week, and then divide it by 7, which gives you your average total daily energy expenditure. Once you've got that number and you know what your calories are, this is your maintenance calories, you then need to work out your macros. And we don't work out macros based on percentages because that doesn't make any sense. 50% of 2,000 calories is exactly 100% less than 50% of 4,000 calories, and that just doesn't make any sense. It's too fluctuational, if that is even a word. We go by grams per kilogram. So protein, you want to be eating 1.6 to 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So for example, a 75 kilo athlete eating 2 grams per kilo would be looking at 150 grams of protein per day, and that's split out over your 3 or 4 meals a day. Remember, protein is 4 calories per gram, same as carbohydrates, 4 calories per gram. Carbohydrates, if you're a moderately active athlete, so if you're fairly new, or if you're only training for sprints, or maybe Olympic distance, triathlons, or you're just a 5 to 10k runner or whatever, 3 to 5 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight. The more active you are, the more towards the upper end you want to be going. If you have a much higher training volume, if you're like half Ironman to Ironman or ultra, and your training volume, this is like you're training 15-20 hours a week, and possibly even twice a day, then you want to be going to the higher end, above 6 grams per kilogram of body weight. 6 to 10 grams. 10 would be sort of the number that you're hitting on the day or two before a race, perhaps, not necessarily on a daily basis. And then you would times that by 4 to get that number in calories. Your grams in protein would be times by 4 to get the number in calories. You total up those two numbers of calories, and the remainder you divide by 9, because there's 9 calories in your fatty acids per gram of fatty acids, and the remaining calories will be what your grams of fats are. That sounds confusing even to me just saying it. Make sure you read the file, because it will make more sense when you see this on paper as well. So you work out your total daily energy expenditure, work out your protein in grams. That never changes. Protein never changes. Work out your calories per gram, and then the remainder of your calories determines your fats, but you don't want that to be less than 20 to 25% of total calories. So if it's less than that, you've probably set your carbs too high based on your activity level. So drop the carbs down, redo the calculation. Now, you might find that you don't need to eat that many carbs every day. If you've got a low training session, you can eat less carbs. If you've got a rest day, you can eat less carbs. You can eat very low carb on that day. You might find that if you're super inactive on a complete rest day, that you just don't get very hungry anyway. So, you know, as long as you're getting your protein in, you know, yeah, that's fine. So the amount of carbs that you consume will fluctuate depending on the volume and intensity of your training. It does matter. The higher the intensity, the higher your need for carbohydrates. Some of you might have heard of fat adaptation, or you know, you've maybe read about athletes who follow a low carb, high fat diet. There's no evidence to support that as a performance enhancer. I will talk in the next video about nutrient timing and the train low principle, which does have performance benefits. But if you're doing endurance sport, you need to be fueling up on carbohydrates, because without carbohydrates, your muscles don't work. That's why you bonk or hit the wall, because you've depleted your glycogen reserves and your muscles no longer have enough energy to contract and relax, and then they stop working or they cramp up. The one caveat to that being, ultra endurance athletes, particularly like mountain and trail runners, might find that they can compete at a much lower level of carbohydrate intake because they're not competing at the same level of intensity as someone doing a half Ironman, for example. And anecdotally, the couple of individuals that I've ever seen or read about, and I did personally know a couple who did quite well on a low carb diet, but they were very, very ultra endurance. One of them was a Ultraman champion in Canada. Another one was a mountain runner. He used to do like 40-mile mountain trail runs in the Pyrenees, and they both thrived quite effectively on a lower carbohydrate diet. But they were still consuming about 200 to 300 grams of carbohydrates a day. It's just comparatively low compared to their total daily energy expenditure. So yeah, I wouldn't advise low carbohydrate diets for you guys, because it will be detrimental to your physical performance. But there is a time and a place for low carbohydrate intake, which I will talk about more in the next video. Those.